Hey everybody, CVH here, and in today's video we're on deck 5 of 5, the final Budget-ify video for one of the pre-constructed decks that came out with Heroes of Skyrim, and we are looking at Paarthurnax's Roar today. So, in the theme of the Budget-ify series, we're going to be taking a look at this deck. Even though it's not an established archetype, it's one of the pre-constructed decks, and we're going to be making it a bit more consistent and ladder ready by just taking out a couple cards that don't really need to be there quite so much, and only using commons and rares from the core set in Heroes of Skyrim as replacements. So for all you budget players out there, if you just get one of these decks, you can pretty easily make some replacements without having to get Madhouse or Fall of the Dark Brotherhood or open a ton of packs and spend a lot of money, and hopefully have a deck that's just a bit more consistent. Well, as you can see in front of you today, this doesn't look like a traditional starter deck with all these premium cards, because this was actually the deck that I got for free. I believe every account was rewarded one of the 5 starter decks just for logging in, basically, after Heroes of Skyrim was released. Paarthurnax's Roar was mine. That's why I waited to do this video for the last after all the other ones like Encano's Cunning and Brynjolf's Heist. I just didn't really want to get back to putting this deck together card by card, but I found the list, and this is the entire pre-constructed deck. So let's get right into it and replace some cards. This pre-constructed deck has many similarities to mid-range Archer. That would be the most adequate comparison in the metagame currently. So if you're going to be looking to where to take this deck after the Budget-ify video, I'd recommend checking out different mid-range Archer decks out there, specifically the Unstoppable Rage Archers, because those decks emphasize the lethals as this starter deck does, using Archer's Gambit for some pretty key early removal that can be used on large threats for just a bit of magicka. But I'll be actually taking away a lot of the emphasis this deck has on shouts, and I'd like to explain why a little bit. Basically, I do believe Unrelenting Force is probably the worst shout out there currently, and while Word Wall and Young Dragonborn actually just got buffed to a 3/3 from a 3/2 kind of recently, card got a lot better. Still wouldn't call it top tier, and while you'll see Greybeard, Mentor, and Word Wall with Drain Vitalities and Soul Tears in a lot of the popular Ram Scout decks currently, that's really slow, honestly, for what Archer's trying to be doing. I don't think the Unrelenting Force is really worth playing all of these support cards, so you'll notice we're going to be cutting those cards. With that in mind, I will be keeping the Drain Vitalities around in this build because they do work well with the Leaf Lurker, the finish off, which could become Leaf Lurkers in the future if you have access to them, and they're basically just one of the better shouts by themselves. They also work with the Sheer Point Dragons because the Sheer Point Dragons can allow the Drain Vitalities to reduce more stats. For starters though, I'm going to be cutting a couple cards. 3 Dova of the Voice, just a really slow and inefficient sort of finisher. It doesn't really pack as much of a punch as you'd want for your 7 costs. There are 7 costs that would do that job a lot better in these colors. I'm also going to be removing 2 copies of Murkwater Witch. Just don't think we need this card with all of the other reductions we have with the Drain Vitalities, and another card that I'll be adding, which shouldn't come as too much of a surprise if you've been keeping up with the other Budget-ify and meta decks. So 2 Murkwater Witches out of there, and also 2 Skooma Racketeers. I don't mind this card, but a lot of our early plays already have lethal, and I do think there are just better 3-drops out there. With that space, I'm going to be maxing out the 3rd copy of Archer's Gambit, which I think is a pretty amazing removal action, especially for this deck because it does emphasize the lethal, so definitely should have a 3rd copy of those. And what shouldn't really come as too much of a surprise, the Goblin Skulk Curse package, which is a mainstay in many decks that use agility in the meta, and Archer, you'll basically be hard-pressed to find an Archer deck without the Goblin Skulk Curse package, besides working so well with Leaf Lurkers and allowing for that powerful tempo swing if you can get a turn 4 or turn 5 Leaf Lurker with a free curse to kill something. It also makes Sheer Point Dragon that much better. So then, like I mentioned, we're going to be cutting into the Shout package of the deck. Unfortunately, I know Shouts are really cool. There are a lot of other decks that could potentially take advantage of them better, I think. The 3 copies of Word Wall, again, you know, obviously they work with the Shouts, but even then, we can't even really do much with the Word Walls themselves. We are going to be a primarily aggressive deck, I think. Young Dragonborns, Unrelenting Forces, and because we have only the Drain Vitalities to search, Greybeard Mentor seems a lot, well, it seems more consistent because we actually always know what we're going to get with the Greybeard, but less powerful in a deck that might run out of Shouts, and then we draw a Greybeard Mentor and we don't really know what to do with it. But that's okay, we have 12 slots now, and we can put in some play sets of cards that I think make a lot more sense in this deck. The first of which is going to be Shadow Shift. Not only does it cycle, but it allows us a lot more versatility with our lethal creatures. In addition to the Archer's Gambits, the Shadow Shifts should allow these lethal creatures to be killing things a lot more often. The next card we're going to be adding is going to help our 3-drop slot, which got a bit worse when we cut a couple of these cards. 3 copies of Black Sap Protector. One of my favorite budget replacements. It's a fine 3-drop 3/3 with Prophecy and Guard, so unless you were going to be playing Shouts, this card is already pretty much strictly better than Young Dragonborn. Also another agility card for our Nimble allies. as will be the next card, Cliff Racer. I speak about Cliff Racer in pretty much every Budget-ify deck that uses agility just because it's that powerful of a card. I call it the Green Lightning Bolt, good offensively, even good defensively to help take trades. And the last card we're going to be adding is 3 copies of Triumphant Jarl, which is another good way Archer has to refill the hand if we wind up using a lot of cards early to take over the board, get a little bit aggressive, start killing things with Archer's Gambits. Triumphant Jarl can come down and give us more cards in our hand to pressure our opponent. So that's it for the deck, a little bit less gimmicky, a little bit more consistent, a lot more similar to the mid-range archers you might see on the ladder, with an emphasis on lethals that we can use with the Archer's Gambit for some good removal. A couple cards that you could be playing if you have access to them. I mentioned Savage Ogre a lot. You could be using Savage Ogre as a decent finisher if you want to take it a bit more aggressive, maybe over Duel Atop the World. Honestly, Paarthurnax now is really slow and doesn't make a whole lot of sense because we won't be leveling up our shouts, but since this is the Paarthurnax's roar deck, even though I think the shouts make the least amount of sense in the deck, we will be keeping it as the deck's namesake currently. But I probably would wind up cutting it. I would probably look to get Belligerent Giants as a great way to start, closing out the game, pressuring your opponent a bit more. You'll see most Archer decks still playing that card. For mid-game, Blood Dragon is a fine option. You'll see a lot of list play, but many do stick to the Cliff Racers and the Leaf Lurkers. This is an amazing card, which you should probably look to max out at 3 copies as soon as possible. Probably removing the finish-offs. I wouldn't hate playing them both, but since you already have the Archer's Gambits, the finish-offs do seem a little bit unnecessary. Maxing out Murkwater Shaman would be great, alongside the Leaf Lurkers and the Sheer Point Dragons. For 3 drops, Black Sap Protector does get the job done, but you could also look at more cool Gatekeeper. Unfortunately, this is a red card, so you might not want to play it with the Nimble Allies, and I do think the Allies make a lot of sense in this build. If you have the Fall of the Dark Brotherhood, though, you have access to Astrid, which is great with our lethal creatures, as well as Brotherhood Slayer, which is an amazing card by itself, and can get those powerful plays like the Sheer Point Dragons, the Jarls, Belligerent Giants if you have them out even earlier. And as mentioned, since we are playing a lot of lethal creatures, and you might want to be adding more breakthroughs like Belligerent Giant in the future, Unstoppable Rage if you do have the Fall of the Dark Brotherhood. This is an amazing card to close out games. Many of the more popular Archer decks currently are maxing this out at 3 copies and sort of building around it, and we already have a deck that can take advantage of it really well with all the lethal creatures we have. So that's it for the replacements. Let's get into some gameplay in casual and see if we can't talk about some lines of play and some of the card replacements we made. And as always, if you enjoyed the video, feel free to leave a like, stay subscribed to the channel for more Legends content, follow my stream in the description, and I'll see you guys next time. So I think this is a full ship. The Black Sap Protector is not too bad, but I do think we want to get on the board early against Scout and start getting a little bit of pressure. We have the Ring Skulk would be ideal. We do not get it, but the hand looks a bit better overall just because we're not stuck with the 2 Triumphant Jarls, which could be really good against Ramp Scout if that's what this is. Looks like it might be Ramp Scout. Already putting that guard in the Shadow Lane. Everyone starts in the Shadow Lane. I don't recommend it a whole lot. Check out Tenz's complete guide to lane positioning. We could Rapid Shot to cycle, but I'd rather save it for a better target, especially because Nimble Ally will more than likely have lethal and the buff. Well, that's definitely not ideal to draw all of those curses. Speaking of things that aren't ideal, that. Double Rapid Shot and double Curse in my hand. What do you know about that? Well, I think I want to cycle. I think I'll go for this and also curse this down to try to get a favorable trade there. Could have gone for Rapid Shot Curse as well. Kind of want to get this on the board though. Sure I can Partisan with the buff, hopefully. We can use Curse with a Leaf Lurker finish off later.
The waters of life.
So that's what he leveled up with the Word Wall. Getting in there for that one. Alright, well let's hope this one hits at least. Would be very nice. Some good news indeed.
The forest is my cloak.
Well, now we have Goblin Skulk. Nice, right on time.
The forest is ours.
I think I'm just gonna play everything over here and try to pressure a bit.
Stands with me. Dumont, take you.
If I fall, the hist will
Definitely not bad. As if on cue, we were finally going to attack with Goblin Skulk and we had to draw the third natural curse in the top 12 cards. It's actually pretty impressive, or it would be if it weren't so horrible.
The forest is ours. The forest is ours.
At this point, I don't even feel inclined to start trying to trade over there. If he has Red Brown in a couple turns, we're probably going to lose. Otherwise, I don't know. He did attack a bit, which is a little bit questionable for Ramscout in the first place, if that is his plan. Unless he has Red Brahma to fall back on, which we really hope he doesn't next turn. But, you know, I think if we're going to be playing the race game, this deck is just better at it than his. Especially because he can't really guard up in this lane effectively at all when I have multiple creatures with lethal.
Dumont, take you.
It's interesting that he would target that after he saw it not search last turn, when I have a 3-2 with more attack power. Thieves Guild should draw us a creature. We really hope. I think I still play it in the right just in case it doesn't. Alright, there we go. That's actually pretty solid.
The forest is ours. The forest is ours.
My contract is fulfilled.
Well, there's no question that Red Brahmin would lose us the game next turn, or be the best possible thing for him. I don't think we diversify lanes, though. I don't really see a reason to. I can sacrifice the, well, after I do that, we can sacrifice the Thieves Guild. It's kind of an important card here. I'm going to target the Sheer Point Dragon and use curses to kill the Sheer Point, but I think I might just leave that. It's not really doing too much to me at the moment. We could kill it. If he's paying attention, he'll know that I didn't search with Skulk. So, with only 2 curses in the discard pile, he should know that I'm holding one. That said, if he has Red Brahmin, I don't think that knowledge would change his mind or influence it one way or the other. That would just be horrible for me. So hopefully he doesn't have it, but it is a scout, and he does have 9 Magicka, so this is about the time they usually have it. Or maybe even turn 7 if they played a Thieves Guild recruit. Which he did not. But if we dodge that, we could actually win this game.
The waters of life.
Well, Sightless Skulk does give us a draw. Not bad. Again, just gonna keep playing over here in the right. Don't even think we need to use the Black Sap, though. I think I might use the Curse here, honestly. Just to push that extra bit of damage. It's only 10, unfortunately, but still a good amount.
The forest is
My
ours.
contract is fulfilled.
Not seeing a reason to spend the Black Sap. Definitely don't want to play it in the left just to die to the Chorus Reaper. Yeah, in this version, since it's so green, you could actually play more Sightless Skulks. But Triumphant Jarl is a fine draw option for the more color-balanced Archer decks, I guess. And you would definitely want more Earthbone Spinners too. I don't know if I mentioned that when I was talking about them, but Earthbone Spinners definitely 3 of in most Archer decks. Actually, some of the lethal versions haven't been playing it, I don't think. Depending on where you go, Earthbone Spinner's a fine epic, though. Well, he has his Cliff Ray, so I don't know if this will help him survive. If he's got that, plus the Sheer Point Dragon, which we saw him get back, I think he's just gonna be dead.
If I fall, the hist will reclaim me.
Might be one off lethal yet again. The finish off does not quite help because we'd still have to trade in the 4-3 to proc the finish off there. We can trade, face for 4. That's all I got.
My contract is fulfilled.
I think I'll just save the finish off here. Make him wonder what I've got.
forest is my strength and my courage.
Let's go then. My time is precious.
Does not look like the start to a turn that keeps him alive here.
The day is yours.
Seems good.
It has been an engaging.
And that is a bit of gameplay with the Paarthurnax's Roar Budget-ify. Basically the finished product there. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. See you next time.